Hello and welcome to TheGunBlog.ca. My name is Nicholas Johnson, and my guest today is Scott Patience. He's the owner of Bullseye North, which is one of Canada's biggest independent gun stores. He's based in London, Ontario. Hi, Scott. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Hi, Nicholas. Thanks very much for having me.
And we're recording this in the middle of December of 2022 after a roller coaster year. Right now, the House of Commons is debating their latest handgun prohibitions and confiscations as Bill C-21. So let me just ask you, how is business for you these days?
Well, business has been very interesting, very busy. We've had probably the busiest year of all time with all these different things going on. And as they say, may you live in interesting times. And this has certainly been the most interesting time in my career with, never knowing exactly what's going to happen in the next few months because you don't know what's going to come from Parliament Hill.
And I'm getting from what you're saying, there's a lot of uncertainty. If we look at just to also to get into Bullseye North, I'm just going to put up a slide here that shows your logo. There's Bullseye North that's based in London. When I grabbed the image off your website, it came with the phone number, so there's some free publicity. And so again, one of the biggest independent gun stores. Tell us about Bullseye North and about, for example, who your customers are, where you do business, whether it's Ontario or online across Canada. Tell us a little bit more about the company.
Well, Bullseye North has been around for about 10 years now, and it's grown quite a lot. Now we have quite a large store up by the highway, and before that we had a medium-sized store that was only a minute and a half from my house, which I kind of miss. And before that we had a small room in one of the computer stores I used to own. So it's been quite a journey over the last 10 years, and that's just been because the growth in the firearms industry and particularly in this area, there's just become a lot more people. I know the gun club Crumlin that I belong to has gone from 200 members when I joined in 2011, and now we're pushing 1,300 members. So just in this area alone, we have a lot of new firearms owners and new community members and new participants, which is what we always like. And that's certainly, done very well for the store. We tend to pull people here from anywhere from 3, even sometimes as much as 4 or 5 hours drive away because they want to come to see what they might be able to get, and we have it here. So that's been a big thing. But also our online has been, very strong across Canada, and we do try our best to do the best service to the East Coast and particularly the West, where we have just a ton of customers and a lot of people that we talk to on a regular basis.
It's amazing. And is there anything you can say about your customers, whether it's mostly sport shooters or mostly hunters, or if there's a percentage in there that's also law enforcement and public agencies? Any kind of breakdowns you can offer?
I think law enforcement is probably the least. It varies by season. Also, sport shooters are hunters sometimes, and sometimes they're collectors. So we have a lot of people that do everything. Seasonality is the big thing. In the summer, it's mostly sport shooters because that's when they're shooting, and in the fall and that we get a lot of hunters. But the collectors are strongest in February, and I think that's mostly because of the February blahs, and they're spending the most time with their collection. So it's truly seasonal, but that's kind of the way things rise and fall.
It's pretty amazing. And do you have any kind of best-selling product or best-selling type of product that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, we were this year handguns win flat out because we sold so many handguns in such a short time, thousands and thousands and thousands, and some of them are still here waiting for transfer, and we're anxious to get them. In Ontario, transfers, I think we're just still in August, which is, not the same as Alberta. That's, a week at the most. But anyway, we've got them here. They're all ready to go to their new homes, and we're looking forward to getting them out the door and having some free space to put the other stuff.
It's really interesting for me as again, I'm not in the industry. I write about the industry. I talk to people in the industry, but I love this success of a startup 10 years ago. Also, by the way, I think it's your 10-year anniversary of operations. So happy anniversary. Fantastic success story from non-existence to being one of the biggest independents in the market. So that's, I love that's a thing I think we can all celebrate, especially in 2022. How does the future look for you?
Well, the future looks good as far as the store goes. I worry about it for our community and the firearms community, and not being able to have the firearms selection that we're all used to. And of course, I feel very strongly about all that. And maybe now's not the time to talk about it, but it's certainly something I am strongly campaigning for and working to help us maintain at least what we have. All I can say is I'm really looking forward to the next conservative majority. But right now, we've got the cards we're dealt with, and hopefully, we've gone a step too far with the government, and finally, the hunters and farmers are realizing that now there's your turn and they're coming for you. So I think that's starting to happen, and I've got my eyes and ears open on the daily events as they unfold. Not as much as you. You're probably my main source for actual Parliament Hill information and general industry news that way. Certainly do a very good job, and I mean that very, very much.
Thank you.
Without you, we wouldn't be able to have such a great resource to find that stuff without. Although I'm a bit of a news hound, I still enjoy having it all in one spot rather than looking all over the place, because that's a lot bigger job.
Well, thank you for saying that. And now I'm extra happy to have you on the channel here. So let's talk about the confiscations right now. So the House of Commons is reviewing Bill C-21, and in late November published a giant amendment at the last minute. They snuck in a huge amendment to Bill C-21, which is a massive confiscation of rifles and shotguns. That was a surprise to a lot of people. How has business been for you in the past few weeks since that announcement came in? Because I'm curious, are people doing panic shopping like after the handgun confiscation announcement, or are people shying away, or what's it like?
No, it's certainly leading much more to the panic. I don't want to call it panic buying, but certainly a giant unexpected surge in the firearms that are threatened to be confiscated, and that also kind of dovetailed right into Black Friday. So we had a very, very busy time with those two things almost happening in an overlap. I think a lot of people bought Black Friday things that are threatened to be on that confiscation list. But certainly a big surge in business, much like we've experienced with the handgun, and also originally when they came after the ARs, that was another surge, but I think that was the smallest of the surges. The handgun one being probably the biggest, just because it was the longest. So we had months and months of it, and it was quite a volume, especially since it was a freeze and everybody realized, hey, this might be your last chance to get what you always wanted, and many people did, and we have none left whatsoever. So I think I regret, maybe I should have bought myself a couple more, but we were busy.
It's also interesting for me, again, as a reader of the stuff you put it on Instagram. I remember after the AR rumors started in forever, but let's say recently 2019, and then COVID, and then every time I remember you used the word unprecedented and record sales, and I guess with each new announcement, it's a new level of unprecedented and unbelievable. Can you take us behind the scenes, though? You're at the gun counter. You're managing a store with how many staff?
We have it changes a lot, but we have around 30 employees that are more full-time. We have a few part-times, but mostly full-time.
Okay. So let's call it 30-ish employees. What's it like for you when in the middle of the day, without any kind of warning or notification, the government announces whether it's a prohibition, a confiscation, a new restriction? What's it like for you at the store? What's it like for you at the store?
It's, I think every time I've heard of it, it never happened during business hours. It was always, after hours, where I'd get a call from some of my more dialed in friends that are really into this kind of thing. And then I would get, and just recently I got the news sitting on the couch with my wife, and my very good friend called me up and said, hey, they're basically banning all semi-autos. And I And I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't. So took a day or so to sink in, and then really realize the scope of it, which is always the biggest problem, because we know that these things are absolutely haphazardly generated, and the people that are doing it don't know anything, as we've seen, and they leave no answers. So as a business goes, it's very challenging, because you're just told that something's going to be banned or whatever, but you're not given any more information. So that does make it difficult, because every business likes stability. Doesn't matter what you sell. Stability is one of the things that keeps a business going and able to plan in the future. So I think we've learned how it goes a bit. We know that things don't happen overnight. That certainly has become the most thing evident to me, is these things take a long time to roll out, and hopefully this C21 in particular will really take a long time to roll out, because it's such a hot mess. But yeah, as a business owner, it's just a bolt out of the blue, and you don't even know what to think, because you've got so little information to go on. And I think, as I said, I've learned to just let it digest and figure it out without panicking. And I'm glad that I do it that way, because we've been able to optimize it, and truly, I hope more than anything that it will not happen, because I'm a shooter also, and I don't want this to happen for me and my friends. But as a business, yeah, it's a bolt out of the blue when you're told half the things you can't sell now with handguns, semi-autos, and ARs are now going to be banned. That's a lot of stuff.
Is that in the case of Bullseye North, is that, you said half, is that roughly half your business in recent years?
Yeah, if you added it all up, I'd say it's half of what our normal business used to be. If you look back a couple years ago, with the percentage handguns were and the percentage ARs were, and now all these semis, there's so many. But the other thing you're not maybe considering is all these accessories. The different types of scopes that go on only ARs, really not only, but that are used primarily by those things. Well, those types of things are not gonna be sold as much, because there won't be many people in the future buying them. Right now, everybody is, and I get that, but we always want to have future business too.
Right. So just to flesh out that, if people are not clear or not familiar with that product, if you ban or if you prohibit a certain type of, if you ban, let's say, ARs or handguns, well, all of a sudden the red dots, the scopes, the slings, the mags, the cases, pardon me, the safes, all the accessories, parts and accessories. I'm just going to mute while I cough. All the parts and accessories that go with that firearm, well, nobody wants that either. And the ammo, you're not, if they ban semi-autos, you're not going in, I'm assuming, you're not going in to buy 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 rounds. You're going in to buy 25 or 50 at a time. In most cases, obviously, competitors is a different story. So how does, I guess what baffles me is, or I'd love you to explain this, how do you stay in business with that kind of a hit to your sales?
Well, we've been kind of planning for this for a long time, but also we're used to growth, and with growth comes new products and new things that we sell that aren't necessarily firearms, or just different things. So I think this coming year or two or three, we won't see the growth that we experienced. Hopefully we'll still see a lot of people buying the guns that they can buy and the accessories that they can, and maintaining their activities at the ranges and out in the wild. I don't think we're going to see as much loss quickly, because with my knowledge of the club, we have a lot of people that participate in the firearm sports, but there's, just like any sport or anything like that, there's a natural loss of people that fall out after a while. So I know that at our club we have more people shooting in the different disciplines than ever before, but as new people can't get a handgun, and now they can't join IPSC or PPC or IDPA, well, we're not going to have that new blood, and that new blood's not going to come in and gear all up for participating, which is what we all enjoy when we're at the range, seeing the new guy show up and he's got all the gear and he can't wait to start. And we're just not going to see those people as much, if at all, for a while, because the Liberals are essentially trying to kill sports shooting, like absolutely trying to kill it. So that's
And
going to be a problem. And there's all sorts of other disciplines, but let's face it, sport shooting is super fun, and a lot of people really embrace it. And there's so many things that you can buy and different things that you can use for doing that.
and my hope is that there is growth, and we do find a new way to there's a silver lining here, that we do find a new way to promote the sport and the industry. Because my concern is, well, geez, I can't get the guns that I want, and I can't shoot the ones I own. So why am I going to go shopping? Why am I going to join a club? And with enough people saying that, the concern is that, well, clubs shut down, stores shut down. We know that with the latest round of legislative and regulatory stuff, some clubs and businesses presumably are going to shut down. Handgun clubs, I believe. I mean, like, you can't see how they're going to grow. But we'll get to this too, this optimism that there is always new stuff happening, whether it's new products or new sports or new disciplines. I guess that's what we have to look forward to.
Right. I know that even myself, I mean, there'll always be something to shoot, and there'll always be new things coming, and hopefully some of those things will be able to find their way to Canada, and hopefully we'll have some reversals of this. This isn't forever. This is just unbelievably aggressive government that's using a wedge issue because it's the only thing that they have that they can generate political hay with right now, because they're faltering in literally every other way. So I understand why they're doing it. I totally get it. But, when they say they consult sport shooters and all that, and hunters, I'd love to know who they're consulting, because I certainly don't know anybody like that. And that's just baloney, let's face it. We all know that. But this is what they've chosen to do, and I don't think they're going to back down, and they're going to keep going, but hopefully they're going to have enough turbulence at this moment that we'll see them out the door anyway, one way or the other. And then what might happen, who knows? I know that when I started this business, literally, it was such a short time before that they had just done away with the long gun registry, and I didn't understand it at the time, because that was just as I was getting into the firearms myself. But that was a big damper on our industry, which at the time I didn't understand the scope of, but now I can look back and see it. At the time, when I started my first store, I didn't have to do anything to do with the long gun registry, because it was already gone. So that was a good thing. And at the time, it actually was a bit of the start of the golden age for our industry, because firearms license holders started to really explode then, and we saw the whole community just grow and grow and grow.
Right. It's been a fantastic decade. I do want to come back to something, though, that even if now you have this, you're like a granddaddy who's seen it all in terms of the ups and downs of legislation and regulation and market trends and fluctuations. At the time, you've shared anecdotes with me previously that, for example, in the May 1st, 2020 confiscations, those in the middle of the day, when you look back, were you always this zen, or can you share some anecdotes of what it was like managing a store when these things, a legislation, a regulation, and an order in council, when it comes down?
That's a day I'll never forget. We knew that was coming, and we were all watching the news conference, and then they said that it was in effect immediately, which I know from my just education that's not something you can actually do. That's dictatorial stuff. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. That's what it was. So we were all freaking out at the time. Everybody was trying to do transfers. The phones were ringing off the hooks. The emails were piling up. Everybody was trying to get a hold of us. Most people were buying ARs. Some people were canceling orders. Everybody wanted to do everything. The RCMP website was crashing. You couldn't get through on the phone. Just pure pandemonium, because, again, there was so little information. And the most nefarious part of it all was that they implemented it so unnecessarily quickly, and probably caused themselves more problems than even us. But definitely that was the first time. So I don't know how zen I was then, But because that was my first time, and now I've had two other big shocks at the least in this industry, you realize, okay, just don't freak out right now. Let's do what we need to do. Let's make a plan, and let's put the resources where they need to be put to most efficiently do the best we can for our customers and get through this.
You sound so wise and calm, and I'm thinking it's like that's I guess a guy who's taken a long view and seen it after a decade. But I imagine day to day, it's not always so calm.
No. I mean, every business has its challenges, and I lived through the computer business beforehand too, which was much faster paced. When I got into the firearms industry, it was unbelievably slow paced relative to that industry. So that was a true joy, to be honest.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about before we get into the business. When you started the business, just how did you get into firearms? What's your way in?
Well, that's a fun story. So I'll tell you, I had a computer business, and we had some computer stores and all that stuff, and it was really declining. So that industry was on its way out, and I knew that I wanted to do something else. So at the time, I had a sister that had lived or did live at that time in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my wife and I went there to go see what they had in Cincinnati, Ohio that they didn't have in London, Ontario, and maybe bring whatever that was here. So my wife and I were out scouting every day, but my son, who was at the time 13 years old, we kept driving by on the highway. There's a place called Target Sports, and they had a gun range. And I thought, hey, what a great thing to do with my 13-year-old son. Let's go to the gun range. So Tuesday afternoon at, I think it was like 2 o'clock, we went to this Target Sports gun range, which great old school gun range. And we went in, and big gun store. I'd never seen so many guns or so many particularly gun safes at that place. And they had a range, and the lineup just to get on the range circled back onto itself. And I think actually must have had a couple of ranges. So we went through the lineup, and there was a man, and I said, yeah, we want to shoot. And he goes, well, what do you want to shoot? And I said, what's the best thing to shoot right now if we don't really know what we're doing? And he handed me a Smith & Wesson 686 in 38, well, 357 really, but whatever. We took 38 and put it in a basket and sent us off to the range. So my son and I went up to the range. We had some zombie targets and figured it out, and we started shooting, and boy, we had a really good time. And I looked around, and the floor was covered in brass. Everybody was there smiling. Everybody was happy. And I started to look at it as a business, and I looked back through the glass, and I saw the big lineup of people waiting to buy more ammo, because everybody, of course, shot through what they thought they'd shoot, and in record time. Like me, and when I left, my wallet was literally empty because we were having so much fun. And I kind of thought, hey, this would be great to do back home. So let's look into that. And that's kind of where it started. I joined my local gun club then, and really got heavily involved in that, and did a lot of trap shooting and a lot of pistol shooting. But I tried to figure out how to open up a range, and I realized that to open up a range, you had to have a gun store. So I thought, well, where can I open up a gun store? And it just so happened I had made a very secure room. We used to keep all the laptops in at one of the retail computer stores that I used to own, and I sold that store to a good friend. So I said, hey, I want to open up this gun store inside that room. And he didn't believe me at first. I said, no, it's going to take time because I have to go through all the processes. And I said, but the real goal is to open up a range. So we opened up the store, and it took a while to get everything going. It took like, I don't know, almost 8 months. But eventually I had a gun store. It was in a little room, and the room was 14 and a half feet by 10 and a half feet wide. And I only told a couple people at the gun store that I was, or not at the gun club that I was opening it. And we opened it up. Now, legally, I had to be open 1 day a week, because really I was hoping to set up more online and more hoping to get to the range. But so I opened up on Saturdays from 12 till 1. And that was my first hours. And I had customers the very, very first day, all friends of mine. And then all of a sudden it just started to get crazy. I would have to open up for half the day, and then I'd have to open up for the whole day. And that was crazy. The word got out, and now I understand the community. I mean, I totally get it. The boys want to see the toys, and I had them, and we were kind of like a quest, because I can honestly tell you there was days when I would have men burst through the door. Remember, it's a small room, and look at me and go, "I finally found you," because we didn't even have a sign up on it. It was a computer store with a little gun store in the back. And then, it started to get kind of crazy. We had lineups in the store. We could only have 11. I always insisted on keeping the door closed for mostly just to be, courteous to my friend who owned the computer store. But we could only have 11 people in the store at a time because we literally ran out of oxygen, which was I know it sounds stupid, but it was true. We were starting to get lightheaded. So we learned to not have so many people, and eventually we'd have 3 of us. I had hired a friend of mine, 2 friends of mine actually, from the club, and we were all behind the counter, and people would come in. And then when it was time for shipping, we'd be down on the floor. We'd be wrapping SKSs to ship, and people would be stepping over us. It was nuts, like, when you think about it. And it just kept growing, and then, finally we organized moving to another store, and then that store grew from 1 unit to 2 units to 3 units. And then just as COVID hit, we moved here, which was perfect timing to maximize how difficult it would be. And that's kind of the Cole's Notes version. But yeah, it's all because my son and I went into that range, and I saw people literally smiling and wrapped around the counter, just wanting to do that. And that's where it all started.
What an incredible origin story. I'm so glad you shared that. It's all new to me. And I got some questions. First of all, can you say what time frame is this? Is like 2010-ish?
Yeah, it would have been very early 2010. Yeah.
And before that, you had not shot at all, or ever?
No, not at all. I shot a 22 with my neighbor, Kuno Berman, who was a great man, a man's man, and set up some tin. Now that I know about shooting, I know just what he did.
Sounds like there's a story there.
Set up some pop cans on the top, and he had a 22, and he was shooting, and he let me shoot because him and I got along really well. And I remember my mom coming home from work and seeing me shooting his gun at pop cans. I was probably 9, something like that, and she wasn't too happy with Kuno. But I had a great time. But that was the only other time I had really shot, until I really got involved with the club, with mostly trap, but then really into pistol and IPSC and the whole journey.
Incredible. And is this the same Target Sports where you shot the revolver, the JR's Target Sports in Stouffville, Ontario?
No, it was in Cincinnati. So it's
it's in Cincinnati.
It's
okay.
called Target, and it's totally unrelated in every way. They're famous nowadays for the largest safe selection in Ohio. And they've got a safe on display that's the size of a small house. Like, it's comical, but they're quite the old school gun store / range.
Amazing. Well, I think I might need that safe one day. That's my prediction. I want to need that safe one day. What an incredible story. So, and was the name of that little room in the computer store, was that already Bullseye?
Yeah, that was Bullseye London.
Okay.
And we've changed the name to Bullseye North, better to reflect being Canada wide. So that was always my thing. Was I love the name Bullseye London, but I really wanted to do Bullseye Canada. Unfortunately, Bullseye Canada is taken. The BullseyeCanada.com is taken by the barbecue sauce, and that's the way that is. So Bullseye North, so North for Canada.
And in these short 10 years, you've had multiple moves and expansions. You've had COVID. You've had the May 1st, 2020 confiscations. You've had the handgun confiscations of, call it 2022. And then you've had the Bill C-21 long gun confiscations, not yet law, but coming in some form or another. That's a lot for a small-ish business in a decade.
Oh yeah, well, you couldn't start off smaller than we started off. And that was intentional, because we put everything on the line, my wife and I, and we, that was a lot of money to invest. Not, every single penny we had, but most of the pennies.
What attracts people to one of the independents, a Bullseye North, for example, versus one of the big box stores, Canadian Tire, Cabela's, Sale, or what attracts people to more of an independent, individually owned
Yeah, I
store?
mean, I think it's more the vibe, because you know that most of the people there do shoot, and we know what's going on in the firearms community around us, and we kind of, the people that do the purchasing know what's going to be well received mostly. And especially in our industry, the biggest problem over the last 10 years, maybe not all the time, but darn near most of the time, was actually having the stuff, because demand in Canada has been so high, and trying to get the FX9s and the sub 2000s and all those great guns that everybody loves. Well, you have to order those way ahead of time. You have to have a good relationship with your supplier. So without that, you don't have them. And if you don't know about it, then you won't have ordered it in time to get them.
So it's about market knowledge, knowing the customers, knowing what's coming in. I want to share something with you and whoever's watching, our audience, because when researching this with this conversation, I went to your About Us page. It's the Bullseye North About Us. I'm just going to read it and I'll say why it's quite significant. So, About Us. Bullseye North, previously Bullseye London, was founded by clay shooting and pistol enthusiasts with the idea of specializing in the best of these products. We have grown tremendously by providing friendly service, fast shipping, and listening to our customers while treating them as we would expect to be treated. We will keep working hard toward being the most successful Canadian business in our industry, while keeping in mind it is all about our customers and us having fun together on the range. Thank you for your business. Why did that strike me? Because I couldn't find anyone else who had anything similar to that. What I view it as a mission and values statement, talking about, I feel like I get to know who the people are, and it makes me want to do business with you. Again, I'm going to say we're completely independent. Scott didn't pay me to say that, but seriously, on the About Us, you usually have, and you have it too, but stores have location and office hours and history and how to like a contact form. I haven't found anyone else who has this type of here's the type of people we are. Can you talk to me about that? How that page and those lines got onto your website? Oh, looks like you're muted, Scott. Still muted? Okay. There you are. Hey,
there
welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you. When I started out, just like everybody else, I got my firearms license, and I went through the whole process from the ground up, and I got to experience what I didn't like about the firearms industry. I did not enjoy going to some of the firearms retail stores that were, unwelcoming, to be honest. Even my club that we joined at the beginning was very unwelcoming. I didn't like it. I found that they weren't accepting to outsiders, and they had a lot of ways to go. And from my experience in the computer industry and that, I always thought a gun store should be just like any other store. Like, you walk in and people are nice, and people want your business, and people want to talk about stuff. And I thought it should be even more than that. I didn't want it to be a bunch of guys sitting around the pickle barrel and talking about whatever they're talking about, but I wanted it to be, just like when you're out at the club, then when you're having fun with the groups that you have, that you guys can all talk, and that this person has had this experience. And not only that, we've learned, when we talk to our customers, we learn their experiences, and we learn from them. So being at a gun store, you don't just learn what you do, you learn what everybody else did. So the amount of information you get is huge. But I didn't have a great experience getting into the industry and getting into the community at the beginning. Maybe it was me. I hope it wasn't. But certainly that was a mission when we got in, and that really resonated. Let me tell you, that resonated, because we had a lot of people come in with exactly that feeling, and they were not shy to expound upon it, which I enjoyed, but it actually got to be comical at some points. But that was probably one of the reasons that we grew so much, is because we wanted to be a store, not some kind of special place that was totally, uncomfortable to be at. That's not what I wanted, and I was up front all the time, especially back then, and I think that carried through.
And I don't know what the store was like in the early days, but when I visited it recently, it's at the new location. It's a big open concept, very, I guess, open concept and open. I was thinking of the layout is open, but also maybe that also reflects on the people. So I want to ask you, how easy was it to hire colleagues and staff who shared those values?
Originally, it wasn't hard because there was a lot of retired people that wanted to work that I knew very well, and there was a lot of people in that industry. But especially with recently, particularly with COVID and all that, it's just like everywhere else, the labor market is quite difficult. But originally, we certainly didn't have a problem. I can tell you that I I used to put out help wanted ads on I think it was Indeed at the time, and I would only put them out for a few hours because I would literally get 1,000 responses. And so we tried to hire through friends and family and that kind of thing. But I know that when COVID originally hit, I'll tell you a quick little funny story is when COVID originally hit and we had to shut the store down, we were so busy. And at that time, we actually didn't have the systems that we have now in place, but we had a printed order form and instead of just doing it right off the monitors. And we used to actually have baskets of orders. And rather than try and count it, we would actually weigh the basket to get an idea on how many orders we had. And I remember stopping everyone because we had closed retail and we had put all our Costco tables out and we had those all set up for packing orders. And I stopped everybody and I told them, okay, in the next hour, I want you to call anybody that that would like to work, that you can trust and would, hopefully have a firearms license or be eligible for one, because we'd like to hire them, for picking and packing for the next little bit. And that's what we did. And so that was kind of crazy. We were that far behind and needed people right away. And, I didn't have enough people I knew at the time. So that was a heck of a day.
And that's and I'm also thinking that you were having stiff competition because I believe there was the CERB, the emergency money benefit where you could get $2,000. I heard all these stories of people. I can just get $2,000 by staying at home. So why would I go and do hard work?
Absolutely. And you want to know what? A lot of those people could have done that, and they chose not to. And they stayed at our store and worked through it. And they realized that they would have a job after that wasn't available anymore, and they would be, higher up in the company food chain because of it.
Amazing. It's a nice story. And it also, what I'm really also getting from you is the human side. Like this is a really, yes, it's guns and ammo and things that go bang and targets and ballistics and wind direction, but actually it's very a lot of physics and chemistry at work here. But actually it's fundamentally, it's the humans. It always comes back to the humans, the men and women who we work with, we shoot with, who, the whole father and son thing or parent child, I should say, how we got into shoot. Except in your case, it was, also in your case, but not father passed on to child, but you and your son together. Yeah. So there's a lot of, family and individuals and humans, and even at the workplace. How are things changing in the business for you now, post-COVID? I assume your online operation has expanded with the confiscations and prohibitions. How are things changing for you, either in terms of the products or how you staff or shifts, or talk about that?
We've shifted a lot of our staffing to customer service. So answering more emails because there's more emails, answering the phones because the phones are ringing like crazy, and having more people. And the more people I put on that, it seems the more people I should put on it. So I think that's a big place for us, because especially during these turbulent times, people are not just calling us for stuff, but they're kind of calling us for answers.
Right.
So do we have all the answers? No, but maybe we can at least let people know what isn't true and where things are going, which way they could go, and that way we can help them make their decision. And a lot of people were worried about getting stuff before they were gone, and we needed to be there, and so we've shifted a lot of resources to that, particularly recently, and mostly just being able to upgrade, getting the stuff out the door fast enough. We are a heavily computerized company because of my background, and every time we can tweak that kind of stuff. My son actually just did a couple tweaks for us that helped us do a lot of stuff with our enterprise software. So that actually took out a whole loop of unnecessary stuff that has vastly increased our shipping times, which is always wonderful and makes everybody happy. So that's kind of it right now. I think we really want to be able to talk to our customers, let them know what's going on, and listen to our customers and see what they want, because that's just like in the retail store. You gain as much in a conversation, you get as much information as you give, because you're finding out where they're coming from, and that's really important.
And I understand better hearing that. Also, why I've noticed over the years, you would share information on your social media feeds, your Instagram, your Twitter, to share information about what's going on and how things are at the store, or also on your website about the latest policy changes and where to get more information. And speaking about the website, I'm going to publicly acknowledge you. Thank you for your support of what I do. You have at the bottom of the website, you have a bunch of your friends, partners, people you like, and we're listed there. So thank you for that. And so I benefit from your transparency. When you are sharing on your social feeds or on your website or in your newsletters what's going on at the store, what's going on in the market, what's going on in the industry, I find that very valuable for what I do at TheGunBlog.ca, but also just as a concerned dude who cares about what's happening in the gun industry.
We all benefit by working together, and that's something that we need to do in this industry as much as possible.
And it's also a reminder, what you're saying, that people come to you for answers about what's happening in Ottawa. And it's really, a lot of the industry and the community is still very grassroots. And we don't hear about it from press releases or the news. We hear about it from each other.
That's true. It's amazing how little the mainstream media actually covers the firearms happenings. And even right now is a great example. Like, certainly it's blown up to epic proportions, but the actual amount of media coverage is not anywhere near what I would like to see it be. And I think our whole community needs to speak up even more now, because not speaking up has got us to where we are. And we don't necessarily need to be overly vocal. We need to be vocal, but also reasoned and knowledgeable, because that is the real trick, and we all know it, is that if the Canadian population really knew what the existing firearms laws are like, what's really the way it really is, they would have absolutely no support for such misguided things as C-21 and that. They would know that every night at midnight I get checked to see if I've done anything criminal, and all the hoops that we jump through, and what a great group the firearms community is, and that we have the least crime of any group in Canada. We're the ones that have shown responsibility and been, as they always say, vetted and tested and all that. But at the end of the day, we're getting put in a light that makes me very uncomfortable a lot of times. I find it, insulting, to be honest. I really gets my blood boiling when I listen to uninformed liberals make totally baseless accusations that just don't even ring true. But if you know even a little bit, you can just see how it's just politically motivated, and how Oh, it just makes me crazy. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there too much.
No, I will, Scott. I'm just gonna extend or push forward a little bit with what you were where you were going. That bias is why one of the reasons I started the TheGunBlog.ca, because I was a new shooter and interested in self defense, and everything I was reading in the mass media, well, none of it matched up with my experience as a PAL holder or a guy who was into guns, and so there was just that gap. And people think, where you use the word, it's uninformed. I don't think it's uninformed. Again, I used to work as a journalist, in a business journalist, and now as an advocate. I don't think it's a lack of information. I think it is actually an anti-gun bias. But that's my opinion, and you may or may not share it. That's
Well, I think the one experience I have had so many times I can't count it is when we have an event at the club, my club Crumlin, that we have, people that haven't done any shooting or anything come to the club. The best experience of all was my wife the very first time. She was not very excited about me getting involved with firearms at the beginning. And I took her out for a day at the club. I actually ended up, I was doing something else, so I dropped her off with the black powder shooters. And then came back for a couple hours later, and she absolutely loved everybody there. And then she met more and more people and found out what kind of people they really are. And, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've had that same experience with just people. We have new shooters nights and that kind of thing. And I've never experienced anything where people weren't absolutely just happy with everything the way it was and how safe it was and how well respected people were treated. Everybody had not just a good time, but they had a time that they didn't expect. And that's been one of the joys of the club. And, I participate in the club as much as I can. And that's the reason that we grew to 1,300 members so quickly, is because we've been a welcoming place that people are actually genuinely surprised, because they don't have the background knowledge. They don't know what the rules are. They don't have the experiences. But generally, the people in the firearms community are literally the friendliest people that I've ever been with, and that's everywhere across Canada and in the States. When I've gone to all those clubs, I've never had anything but good overall experiences.
it's extraordinary, and it goes back to, I think, the anecdote that you shared, your first time shooting the revolvers in Cincinnati. The smiles, like
Yeah,
that should be everybody's first experience, in my opinion. Putting shots down range and leaving the place with the smile and say, "I want to do this again. I want to
that's
open
right.
a gun store. I want to buy guns, whatever." Um, Before we close out, is there anything that you'd like to emphasize, or that we didn't cover, that you want to say, or anything that we haven't touched on, or that you want to, reemphasize?
I think now is probably the most important time for all of us to reach out into our circle of friends and family and just ask them, hey, what do you think it takes to get a firearms license, or what do you think the rules are, or, and I think most of the time you'll be surprised. Even talking to my own mother recently, when the liberals kept bringing up assault weapons, and I was like, these are not assault weapons. Assault weapons were banned in the 70s. Nobody's walking around with machine guns, and words are powerful, and I think we need to let people know that the words that are being used aren't necessarily reflective of the reality. And now we might be the best time, because we're starting to see some pushback from people that are hunters that maybe don't do sport shooting, or aren't involved, or don't read the gun blog, or don't look at anything. They're just, their dad gave them a nice hunting rifle, and now it might be banned. Like, that's the kind of people we need to talk to. Unfortunately, that's the kind of people that should have been involved a while ago, and maybe we wouldn't be here. But that's all we can do right now, until the next election, which can't come soon enough.
Yeah, so sharing information, and I would also like sharing information like you just did, in a calm voice with a smile. We don't have to rage and get angry about it, even if we may on the inside. But when we in our communications, just calm and smile and educate and
Exactly. But
without getting preachy. That's my big one. Yeah, don't get preachy.
we're always startled by how little people know. Not their fault.
Yeah.
They just how are you going to know that, right? Until you get involved.
Well, I was going to say, like, there was around the CSAAA, Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, did a roundtable this week to educate people, to educate their members about Bill C-21 and take some questions. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of people who are not familiar or are confused or uncertain. And I think that makes real sense because, geez, you can't run your business. You practically need to spend full time reading House of Commons or policy debates. And who has time for that if you want to run your business? So it's, yeah, I understand the need for, it's tough.
I get that. And I'm lucky I'm a news hound and I love politics and all that stuff. And I do follow it for just personal reasons, but it is sad when we talk to people that don't understand how Parliament works, how the political system works, and how unbelievably powerful it can be with very few ways to check or balance it.
So we've talked about your origins, the origins and tremendous growth of Bullseye North. We talked about the confiscations, the headwinds, the COVID, the regulatory uncertainty, the huge regulatory risk. I want to close out by being positive, by focusing on the positive. And what are some things that are positive to look forward to for Canadian shooters, for the Canadian shooting industry, for Bullseye North?
Well, I think the number one thing to be positive about right now is the fact that there's more of us right now than there has ever been. Right now, there's more people with PALs. There's more people interested in firearms and all of this firearm sports. So that's a huge strength, and I hope that we can build upon it. And I don't think it's going to go away. We need to do everything that we can to keep that going until we can, reverse some of these things, or at least maybe stop them from happening in the first place, and get back to just growing the sports and us all having a good time, because that's kind of what it was always about. And I would like to spend some time where I don't have any excitement. I don't have any weird things have to happen, and I just know it's going to be smooth sailing for a while, and we'll spend more time organizing shoots and doing the fun stuff than having to fight all the time and being surprised.
So I don't know how to phrase that. Like, do I wish you a decades of smooth sailing?
Yeah, I'd like to be bored for a while. And, just feel like, hey, let's make some kind of event happen and stuff like that. That's the joy. Instead of, we don't need another year of COVID and liberal attacks against us. That's enough.
All right, Scott. Then I guess I will wish you, after the first decade of success, many more decades of success with smooth sailing and happy times ahead. Thank you very much for speaking with me today.
Well, thank you very much, Nicholas. It was a pleasure, and thank you for all the things you do for us. You are definitely a big part of our community across Canada, and truly appreciate it.
Thank you.